All right, well, welcome everybody to Solar Noon Tuesday. This is the week of, let's see, today is January 23rd. And as per normal, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go through the headlines in the week of solar first, and then I'll hit on what some upcoming webinars and the like. And then we're going to have a conversation about starting up a solar company, what's involved with that, at least one person's experience on that. So jumping into the solar news, the Department of Interior has announced that they're going to be opening up about 22 million acres of federal land to solar development. Now, this is raising it up to 22 million from about 800,000 acres, which is about 1/100th of the amount of land that's currently open to oil and gas exploration. So what they're doing is following a publication. They come up with these torturous titles of these publications, but this was from the Bureau of Land Management, entitled Utility Scale Solar Energy Programmatic Environmental Impact Statement. And so fortunately, they refer to it as the Western Solar Plan. So this Western Solar Plan is going to open up a lot of acres. They've identified, I think it was like 200,000 acres located near transmission centers so that they can tap in to the transmission system. And that's going to be quite a boost for available space there. The Energy Information Administration projects that over the next 2 years, wind and solar are going to dominate energy generation facilities that are coming online. In fact, they project that solar is going to grow about 75% from 163 billion kilowatt hours in 2023 to about 286 billion kilowatt hours in 2025. Wind's going to increase more modestly at about 11% rate. Coal is projected to decline by about 18% over the next 2 years. And interestingly enough, the International Energy Agency, or the IEA, has projected that worldwide, wind and solar are going to account for about 95% of all of the new energy generation worldwide, across the globe. 6 solar manufacturers have formed a consortium where they're planning on trying to standardize 700-watt plus panels. Now, it's interesting because just 3 years ago, companies began introducing 600-watt panels. So just in the 3 years, we've gone from 600-watt panels at the utility scale level up to around 700-watt panels. The group includes Trina Solar, Astra Energy, Canadian Solar, Ryzen Energy, TCL. I know I'm going to mispronounce these, but Zhongguan and Tangway group. Anyway, they're hoping that by standardizing on the size of these panels and the way they're configured, where the mounting holes are and the like, that it will help in installation so that rack manufacturers can standardize on these things. It'll also preempt some supply chain issues, hopefully help increase production and lower prices. They've standardized on these panels at a size of 2,384 millimeters tall, which is 94 inches. That's pretty tall solar panel. And 1,303 millimeters wide, which is about 51.3 inches. So these are very large panels. So that's happening there. Lithium-ion battery pack prices have declined. They fell about 14% in 2023. Now, there's been steep declines over the years. What we saw during COVID is there was kind of a leveling off or even a slight increase in prices as supply chains were constrained. But now in 2023, we're starting to see this decline in price resume. Currently, the price is around $139 per kilowatt hour for these lithium-ion battery packs. EV batteries, which make up a lion's share of the battery packs that are sold, they're actually a little bit cheaper. They're at about 128 per kilowatt hours. And the U.S. Department of Energy has set a target where they're hoping for declines to about $80 a kilowatt hour for EVs that have a range of about 300 miles. And the goal there is to have it down to $80 by 2030. And a new study from NREL has found that that contrary to what we've always been told and expectations, rain is not going to take care of cleaning your solar panels in wet environments. They've always assumed that in desert or arid environments, you're going to have to clean them periodically because of dust and the like on the panels. But in wet environments, they're finding that pollen has become quite a problem. This study in North Carolina found that you can lose as much as 15% of the output from your solar panels if they're not cleaned regularly. When they did clean them, they found an average of about a 10% improvement in production. The major pollen culprits in this are, at least in this study, were cypress, pine, juniper, and oak trees that caused that issue. And those were the main headlines in the world of solar for this week. Does anybody have anything they wanted to add to that? Any of the folks who are online at the moment? Things that popped up in your news feed that I didn't touch on?
Not in the news feed, but not in the news feed, but when you're talking about 700-watt panels and panels that big, are we talking about much thinner glass and so much more vulnerable to hail?
I think you're probably, just we're seeing this where the frame is thinner. That's something that we're seeing. So you don't have like an 1.5 inch thick. It's now 3/4. With the utility scale, what they're trying to do to mitigate hail is, because they're usually in an adjustable or a tracking frame, they're using weather predictors and turning the panels vertical when hail is approaching. So that's the anticipation, is to take active measures to try and alleviate some of that. But I think you're right. I'm concerned that as they try and make these panels lighter weight using less materials, they're not going to be as robust. We're not going to see these things lasting 25 years as the older panels have been prone to. I don't know, Jimmy, you were just working on a utility scale thing. Were the panels, did you notice if they're measurably thinner or more flimsy, the big panels?
No, I think they're pretty thick. They weigh, I think the 545s weigh about 72 pounds a piece.
Yep.
And so there's a little thicker glass. I mean, they can get damaged pretty easily. But I've also seen trucks hit solar arrays that just kind of ran into them by accident and not damaged any of the panels. So I think that they're flexible, but I also think that if they flex too much, they're going to shatter or crack.
Yeah, my guess is they've always tried to keep those panels under 50 pounds so that one person can manage them through OSHA. But at this size, they don't care. They know that it's going to be two people, hefting one of those panels around.
These were 545s, and I know for a fact they weighed 71.9 pounds.
Yeah, that sounds like someone who lifted a few of them.
Well, we definitely lifted a few of them, but not too much, not too bad.
All right.
Our main focus out there was pulling wire. We did a little bit of everything at times, but our main focus out there was pulling the strings.
Okay. Well, I'll get back to you here in a second.
I do have a question though. I do have a question real quick,
okay, sure.
Because somebody brought it up. Do you know if, because it's a 700-watt panel, I'm just assuming that it's probably a bifacial panel?
They don't get into that. They're just talking about size conformity. But that would make sense.
So if it is a bifacial panel, and this is something I don't know, does that 700-watt calculate into that number? Does it have to have so much insulation on the backside of the panel to calculate that, to make that number of 700 watts?
Yeah, whatever the output wattage would be what both faces are producing combined. Okay. At under standard test conditions.
Gotcha. Okay.
Another question.
Question I had, I wasn't sure.
Sure. Okay.
Hey, one more question. How much did you say? How much did you say the lithium ion batteries were per kilowatt? Did you say $100,
$139 per kilowatt hour?
I was like, wow, because I was like, where are you getting those?
Yeah, well, and that's of course going to be a wholesale price, because if you talk about like a 10 kW 10 kilowatt hour battery, say for instance, Solar Edge or something like that, you're not going to get that for $1,390. you know, that unit's going to cost you more like, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000, but that's the wholesale price of the battery pack.
Okay.
All right. There was another question there.
Yeah, I wanted to find out if those 700 watt panels are those specifically for utilities, or it's, when you're trying to put things on a roofer rack, then the larger the pixels, the more awkward it is to make them fit.
Yeah, normally, yes, they are typically these larger panels, the 600 watt, 500 watt.
Yeah.
Really anything more than, say, a 450 watt panel is really designed for large commercial or utility, but that's changing a bit. I've seen some articles where they're talking about larger panels on residential. So I think we'll begin to see that become a trend, but those larger panels, when you're talking 4.5 feet wide by what, 8 feet tall or so. I mean, that's like hefting a sheet of plywood up around on top of a rooftop. And that's going to be a little bit awkward. So I think it's really designed more for ground mounted utility scale systems. That's what these panels are designed for. That's sort of the key we're going.
That's for sure what they're designed for.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me jump into some of the events that are coming up. And as per normal, I would just tell you that these I'm not going to give you links or anything. I'm just making you aware of these upcoming webinars. And there's this thing called Google where you guys can actually find them. So as long as you're aware of them, you can go search for them. So anyway, there's on January 23rd, which is today, 2 p.m., Solar Edge, talking about a 330 kilowatt inverter system. So talking about big systems. A Solar Edge inverter, they're starting to move into the utility scale and large commercial scale world. And these things work with 1,300 watt power optimizers. So there you're talking about two 600 watt panels kind of things going into an optimizer. They claim they're about 99% efficient. You can do 200% DC oversizing, so 200% of the panel size for the inverter. So in this case, you could have a 660 kW array feeding one Solar Edge 330 inverter. So worth looking at if you're getting into the larger scale systems. Also today at 2 p.m., safety issues with battery systems. That's another webinar that's out there. On the 25th at 11 a.m., EV charging. Using microgrids. Now, all of these times I'm giving you are Eastern time, U.S. Eastern time. Okay, January 30th at noon, storage for utility scale storage systems. So that's another webinar coming up. 11 a.m. on the 30th, microgrids and virtual power plants. So if you're interested in how that's going to evolve. On the 30th at noon, this is another one about long-term battery storage. And I would kind of encourage you, if you can, to look at that one because we are moving into this era of long-term storage, not only at residential, but at the commercial, at the utility scale. So this is going to be one of those things on the horizon that over the next year or two, we're going to hear a lot more about, where instead of going with a 1 hour storage or 2 hour storage, we're going to be talking about multiple day storage at these levels. January 30th at 2 p.m., checking on CEA's diversity certification program. On February 6th, this is a utility scale thing too, about the proper way to report grid outages. Maybe not many people on this call interested in that one. Then there's one about three-dimensional design for tracking systems. So again, a lot of these are moving into the utility scale or the larger systems. But when you're talking about contouring land, that's been one of these issues that have been facing the large ground-mounted systems where you've got to level out the property, in order to get these things. Well, now they're coming up with systems that allow you to track along the contours. And this may have some interesting insights there for three-dimensional tracking. There's one at February 20th, recruiting and retaining veterans in your solar programs. And then, of course, this is my shameless ad for our program. So solarpvtraining.com. You can look at the online and the upcoming courses that we have there. And then we have a number of classes in person that are also available. So that's it for that. So anybody have any Other little comments before we jump into our discussion about starting up a solar program? Give you guys just a second there. Shine. All right. Well, let's get the discussion going, and hopefully you'll have some comments on this, but I wanted to introduce the idea. We've had a number of people on the calls talk about starting or trying to sell solar, what's involved in starting it up. And of course, my good friend Jimmy Braswell has been doing this now for a while and is starting to get some experience under his belt, and he can tell you the wit and wisdom of what not to do, probably more than what to do. And I pulled this little picture of his lovely family off the website there, just to have a background image for me. So Jimmy, welcome, and give us a little bit of about your background and what got you into solar.
Well, my background is since 1996 has been electrical, so industrial electrical. You know, I actually started out welding. Both of my parents were pipe fitters, and they both wanted me to weld for them. So I went to school for structural welding, and I got a call in Miami for an electrical company that's working on a refinery, and they asked me if I'd come out and do the structural welding. Since I'd already passed that, I was like, sure, it's Miami, you know. So I went, and during the downtime of a lot of that, I would learn, you know, how to bend conduit, which I really fell in love with at the time, and how to, you know, this is an outside utility refinery. So it was Rob Roy, the hardest conduit you could bend without, you know, messing up. So I learned pretty cool stuff back then. People were still doing symmetric bending and stuff like that. And so I learned a lot of that. I just fell in love with the bending conduit and pulling wire and stuff like that. And I felt like the electrical trade was my calling. So I went back to school for that. You know, years later, actually, I stayed in the field, went back to school for that. And I've always been in the industrial field of electrical. I've done not so much, you know, through those years, residential, some commercial, but industrial is where it's at. And so I'd heard through a program that there were, so let me also give you another part of my background. Another part of my background is that I'd gotten into some trouble when I was younger, and I ended up serving some time for a DUI. And while I was in there, there's no programs for anybody in there to take care of themselves or do better and come out better. And so it was a struggle, and it was a fight to like get the certification and stuff that I needed, which I did a lot of those in prison. And so when I got out, I'd heard about CDC out in California that was taking people and putting them through training and then putting them in a solar program. And so, like, you know, in these open solar fields, nobody cares about your record, or nobody cares about, you know, what your past is. They just want to know you got a good work ethic and you know, a good attitude. And I got those. So I thought it would be helpful and beneficial to not just me, but other guys around me if I could start some kind of program like that for people coming in reentry and get them into solar. So I didn't make up the idea. I think a lot of people are doing it now, but I did read about it a very long time ago. We're talking about like 2006 in California. So going on that, I married a wonderful girl named Heather, and she is a 6th grade math teacher in school. And I told her my ideas and my dreams, and man, she made them come true. She pushed me to get the LLC. She pushed me to get back in college. I went back to school for electrical reliability and instrumentation because I thought that would really fit into clean energy in the future, especially like with the geothermal heating and cooling, which we hope to be able to do within 5 years or something like that. You know, it's a goal. It's a goal. I can say that. But all that kind of played in, and I got my degree in applied science, and then I went through your training, Jay. You got the ETA certifications. I kind of did it backwards though. I said, you know, I got the LLC, and then I made sure I got all the training afterwards. So,
Yeah,
and then started building arrays and things like that, you know, afterwards. So
I would say most people actually, you know, get the training before they start up a solar company. So, yeah. So speaking of that, I would say, I know your technical abilities there. What would you say that the business aspect of it, the management of the company, the procuring of customers, just managing finances, is that the big challenge as opposed to doing the actual work?
So yeah, coming into it, I'm gonna let you know I spent my entire savings. I had somewhere probably around, I got about 40 grand into just starting this company. So, but I spent almost my entire savings to get it going, and which is worth it. We're supposed to be switching over to an S corp this year after we're file our taxes, and then I can actually pay myself. But for the last year, I haven't even been able to pay myself, but which is okay. And I still use the credit cards if I need something.
It's
But
funny well, I was just going to interrupt with a little story there. When we started up Blue Rock Station, and actually, when I put together the business plan, I anticipated we would be losing money for the first 5 years.
yeah,
And people would, and when I mapped it out, I said, okay, we're going to lose a lot of money the first year and a little less money the second year and a little less the third year. And by the fifth year, we're going to break even. And so like a year and two into it, people would say, so how is your business going? And I say, hey, we're right on schedule, man. I'm losing a lot of money.
so I remember you telling me that a long time ago, and I was thinking that this year we probably wouldn't make a profit, but and I'm happy about this. We made 17,000 profit.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
that's not very much, but it's a struggle. But man, it takes a second to get up and get everything covered and paid for and things like that. I've had some help. We invested into a program called Jobs and Hope. Is a program that I actually went through at one time, and we started hiring guys out of reentry and things like that. And they offered us a grant that is a payment reimbursement grant for helping people in recovery find gainful employment. So that's worked out great. That's probably the only reason why we did make that 17,000 profit this year. You know what I mean? So, but it helped out a lot. And the guys that come from that program, they are, they have records, but they have work ethic, they have heart, they have positive attitudes. And when we're all together, we get shit done. I'm just saying.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Well, one of the things that I hear a lot, and you can confirm this or deny it, is when you're starting out and you're a small business, you're having to do two different things. You're having to sell projects and install projects, and sometimes those things are mutually exclusive, where it becomes a bit of a feast or famine, where you've got too many things going on or nothing going on, and you're trying to line up work, but you've still got people who are supposed to be working for you. So you want to keep them busy. And it's this big juggle that until the whole pipeline starts flowing, it can be quite a struggle.
Yep. So I'll go back to the beginning of what you first said, and this is something you told me a long time ago as well. We under promise and over deliver. Now I didn't start like that, because when I was so excited getting into it, I'm like, oh my God, we could do this. We could build a great array. You'll never pay any power and da da da. And I was thinking along those lines. Luckily that we were able to do that at the time, but now I've come into situations where it's not always so. Sometimes they don't have the roof space or a ground mount or anything like that. There's not enough space to match their bill or go 20% over. There's not enough space for that. So now, I walk into it in a different manner. I show the client, look, this is a PV sketch or a mock-up sketch of what their full power demand is. And then we can go backwards from there and, to get where we just offset their bill and things like that. So, but that was a learning experience. Well, the last thing you said was,
Well, trying to juggle the selling at the same
yes.
time as you're doing the installing.
Right. The selling, well, luckily the people that we've ran into have contacted us. We're not like a huge advertisement business. We don't have a whole lot of advertisement. What we do kind of goes by word of mouth, which is where I want to be right now. I just want to do word of mouth and see how far that takes us before I start really advertising and trying to make, and I just think that's a better buildup. I think that you showed me that too, Jay. I think that's something you said before. But yeah, selling the product, well, it hasn't been, too hard, because we mainly deal with in phase when it comes to residential, and they've got great products. And if I can sit down and explain what those products are and what they do, then usually the clients come out pretty happy on the end. So that's a plus too.
Well, I think one of the other things that's worked out well, and I do want you to get a little bit more in depth in this, because we talked about as the end of the year was approaching, it becomes difficult to try and sell new products, new systems, because everybody's kind of going, it's coming into the winter and the holidays are coming, and I don't want to commit to something. Talk to me after the first of the year. So as kind of a startup, that's a hard time to build up sales. But then on the other hand, those people who are involved and have been more established are facing this end of the year deadline situation where all of their bigger customers are going, I want this thing done and operational by the first of the year so I can take advantage of the tax credits and I can get all of these. So we talked about that and said, hey, you guys can go out there and sub and do some work for other folks to get through that end of the year thing. So why don't you tell a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, this has been, it was life-changing. I talked to ARP and I just so happened to catch them, just like you said, in the clutch of the end of the year. They're trying to get things in. They're also being asked by other larger companies to help them sub and get things in. I contacted ARP, Gary Easton over at ARP, and man, he is great. He is great. He's like, yeah, absolutely. He knows about what we're trying to do here, the people that we're hiring and everything, and he's really trying to make a difference. So right away, he put us on a job in Columbus, a 34 megawatt job, and kept us busy through those months where it was hard. And there's a lot of variables to why that it's not just the weather. There's also like the permitting and dealing with AEP to get interconnections. It's a pain in the butt. It's a pain in the butt to figure out. And once we do one, we're like, oh, now we've got the formula to do the next one, but it never works out that way. There's always something that they don't have. And then I just learned from Gary yesterday or maybe John McNamara from ARP that they have 29 days to answer each email. And I started looking back on one of the projects.
You mean the utility has 29?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The utility has 29 days to answer an email once they've sent, a question that's, something that needs to be changed on your application. They have 29 days to answer that, and they use every bit of that. They used every bit of that on this one of the projects that I was on. So dealing with utilities is rough, and it does mean delays. Also, there's like the grant writing and stuff. There's some clients that are going through the grant process, and the USDA office is so backed up by months, by 3 or 4 months at least. And so when they're getting the grant, it's not even going to be answered for another 4 months. And then it takes a few months after that to get things procured and ready to go. So it's that you got to really be able to look ahead, and it's a learning process. So
yeah, one of the things we were talking about doing, just to let people know, ideally what we're trying to do, you and I, is you come down to our office, once a week, if it permits, and just kind of walking through some of the things like how do you project manage, how do you deal with cash flow issues, how do we. So I really think that the management, the time management thing is going to be critical as you move forward. Like not so much even getting into Gantt charts and PERT charts and things like that, but just to say, okay, let's allocate 3 weeks for the permitting process to get permission, and let's allocate 3 days to install it. And now we've got 2 days of commissioning, and then we've got 6 weeks before AEP is going to let us turn the bloody thing on. And, those kind of things, and just map them out, because that's fine with one project, but then you've got 10 projects, 15 projects going on. And how do you move your crews around, and how do you deal with procurement of materials? And fortunately, you're married to Heather, who is like super organized.
Man, she is.
Yeah.
She's the opposite of me.
Yeah. So if there were 2 of you, you'd be in trouble. And probably if there were 2 of her, they'd be in trouble, because they would be organizing each other. So
they'd probably butt heads a little bit. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Anyway, so those are kind of things and it's true in any small business, but it's especially true in this business, that scheduling and organization and crews and logistics and all these things that people don't really consider become really primary to success. And then, of course, cash management, because you're laying out a lot of money for folks typically when you're putting a system in before you get paid for it.
Right, right.
And so you got to really manage through the cash as well.
That's very
Jay,
true.
at this point, Jay,
Yeah, what you said
at
about
this
Heather
point-
is absolutely true, and she keeps things sound. And but the problem is that she's also a sixth grade math teacher for Marietta schools, and it's hard for me and her both to get together and juggle all the stuff that we got around. So I got real lucky again with ARP, and they've offered to help us with the permitting and stuff like that. And I think I'm going to take that. I think I'm going to take that and just let them, handle some of our permitting. And it's just a great offer, and do what we can too on our end, so we don't get behind on it. But yeah, I think that it's worth hiring someone else to help with the permitting and things.
Okay, well, I want to ask you a little bit about the utility scale installation, but before I do that, I just want to open it up to folks to see if anybody has any questions specifically at this stage.
Jay, I got a
Oh, okay, yeah,
I-
Chris,
what-
and then Al.
One very quick question. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I can.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. It seems to me that this is a rough business to get into, and coincidentally, you're I am just thoroughly fascinated with your story. I am an electrical engineer, and I don't have a license, but I have the education. I have a master's in computer science, and I've done all the numbers. And I'm primarily a developer, an IT developer, and I've developed some stuff on over the years, so I pretty much know what I'm doing. But I have an idea that is designed. I have an idea for a system that is that can help you with all of those things, and you and others that have to deal with ramping up a startup. It is very, very rough to do from your thoughts. And so maybe I can get some time next time. I don't know what the procedure is. Outline in more detail what I'm about, because I foresee you as a group being a significant part of this business. The idea is to scale it national, and to take a stab at a percentage of the total rooftop installations in the country in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Okay, well,
So-
Albert, what
Yeah.
I'd suggest is maybe you can contact me directly and
Okay.
we can walk through that and maybe even do a program about some of your ideas if that.
That's
that works out.
really fascinating, and I would be willing to listen to that all day.
Okay.
Hey, Chris,
Question.
go ahead.
Are you going to make available the video of this interaction?
yes, in fact,
Okay.
every one of these Solar Noon Tuesday programs, we do record and post on YouTube, and there's a link on our Solar Noon Tuesday, the Solar Noon Tuesday programs, really for the last several years on our solarpvtraining.com website. So all of that's available to you.
Okay, very good.
And then Clean Energy has a website too. It's just Clean Energy Solar. And there's not a whole lot of content in it yet. Right now, we've got a ton to add. We just haven't got in there and added it. But there is a Clean Energy Solar website, and I think you should be able to contact us through that if you'd like, Albert.
Okay.
And Chris, you had a question?
No, I didn't. I was gonna offer some advice. As a
Okay.
business management consultant for 40 years,
Okay.
dealing with some major corporations, I think Jay's got some very key points in there. If you're not planning to lose money for the first couple of years, you're going to fail because you won't have the resources to move forward. Which
Right.
means you need a really good accountant who knows all the tax laws. My accountant has saved me thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, it's cost me thousands in some cases, but he saved me so much money and he put me in the right direction. It was worth every dime getting a consultant and accountant who knows what they're talking about.
And he's
And then-
managed to keep you out of jail, right? That's worth a few dollars, right?
But you know, and in some cases you can have loss forward, so you can lose money and not pay tax, but also make sure you take that loss to the next year, so you can write that off as well, which helps you in your income tax and all that kinds of things. A good accountant can save you so much time, money, and effort. And the second part of that is a lawyer. Having a good lawyer who can help you through the good and bad times. We were just a little bit off topic, but we were dealing with the oil and gas people, and they were screwing us big time. We ended up hiring a lawyer who's just specialized in oil and gas, and he fought for us. I mean, again, it costs, but we won. I mean, if we hadn't had that knowledge from that lawyer, it would have cost us a ton of money, a ton of money. It would have lost us a lot of money. So, I mean, those two resources are, I don't know how any business can do without those two resources.
Yeah, I
And
think
then
that's good advice, because I think, Jimmy, what you run into is that the any business is a business. You know, it's like you can have a calling, and you can say that this is something that I'd like to see happen, but it usually comes down to all the boring things of making sure the books balance and making sure that you're complying with the regulations and making sure your cash management is in place and your scheduling is in place. These are all the things that Heather's gonna do for you, you know,
Well,
at least initially.
No, we do have an accounting service, of course.
Yeah.
But I
again,
don't know. I don't. This is a new business for around here, so they don't know all like the tax credits and stuff like that, and so
You would be surprised.
they don't really know those, and I have to like stay on them about it. It would be nice if there was, you know, like you're talking about, someone that is already skilled in that area. You know what I mean? That knows the right ways to go with you know, the things that come up. So
Okay, well, I don't want to belabor. I don't want to belabor all of that part, because I mean, it's vital, but it's kind of boring. I want to get into the juicy stuff about the you know, you're working on you said a 28 megawatt system up near Columbus.
No, we finished up what we're doing up there. We just pulled the wire.
Yeah. Well, just tell me a little bit about your experience, just because this was going to be probably, it's the first big system like that. What was your impression as opposed to rooftop solar? What were some of the things you saw going on that kind of blew your mind?
Well, we're talking about, okay, so like on an industrial scale of work, ground mount systems, a lot easier to work with, can go up, you know, 10 times faster than a roof mount. So things were getting done pretty quick. They had PD10s out there that were just, you know, piling. They'd pile and put the racking up, and then, you know, you get these crews that come through and they just slam the modules in, you know, all the panels. And then we come through and we've got our wire pulling technique is we've got a trailer behind a buggy with big spools of 5,000 foot of, you know, number 8 solar wire. And we're just dragging that along and pulling strings, sometimes 5, 6 at a time for the array, 5, 6 different rings on one row. So it's like it's the difference in working in an industrial manner of like, this group does this group does that. But also there were times out there, especially through the holidays, because we were working through the holidays, that I'd say like 90% of the people on the 2nd of January, when we were supposed to come back, didn't come back. And then after Christmas, nobody came back. So they had some spots that they had to get done. So of course, you know, my guy, he's good on equipment. He jumps on the excavator. We got a trench, run conduit, you know, all of our weather heads, pull that wire through. You know, we build stands for it, everything. So it's good. We're kind of well-rounded. You know what I mean? I've been in the industrial field for a long time. When it comes to like building industrial scale, it's easy. It's easy for me. You know, it's like the back of my hand. When it comes to like roof mounts and stuff like that, you know, it's to me, it's just a lot of different layouts. It takes time to get the modules on. Depends on how you're anchoring them. You know,
Sure.
some of it could be really time consuming. And
Plus you
I
often
prefer doing the ground mounts, to be honest with you. I prefer doing those, but rooftops are fun too, you know.
I would think too, at the residential level, you've got a homeowner who's out there looking over your shoulder, and there are specific little issues
Sometimes.
that are going on.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, that is the case. Sometimes some people have a lot of questions. Some people don't just like, okay, do it. It's let us know at the end that it works, you know, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's with anything.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with residential, that's with anything.
Yeah, because we've talked about it. I've spoken with different groups that are looking at this utility scale when it comes to training. And my impression, and maybe you can reinforce this or dissuade me, is that at the utility scale, everything is so specialized that you really can't come at it with a let's talk to you about the A to Z of solar, because some guys are just driving in, vertical piles, and other guys are putting one support piece on, and the others are dealing with tracking systems, and it's like everybody has their own little niche, and
Right.
and the people are kind of revolving through it too. I suspect they bring in one crew, and they're there for a few days or a week, and then all of a sudden another crew's coming through, or how does that work?
It's a little because this is a large the job that we did in Columbus anyways. Or you're talking about the utility scale.
Yeah, utility scale.
Yeah, well, there's teams that come through, like I say, and do everything, but it's a large job. You know what I mean? Those people, they stay there for a few months, doing what they're doing. And then some of those guys that, do the modules and things like that, they'll jump over, and then they'll be doing, different parts of bonding and things like that to the inverters and things. So some of the guys are well-rounded. I met quite a few people that were well-rounded. Matter of fact, there's one on here now. I don't know if he's listening. Kodiak. He's there.
Hey, I'm here.
Aha.
How's it going?
So Kodiak's worked a ton of industrial jobs.
Yeah.
And he's worked for Amazon. Am I correct on that?
I'm at Amazon right now, actually, listening to you guys.
Yeah. So Kodiak knows a lot about like the industrial side of it and how it goes with different groups coming in and doing their piece, and then another group coming in their piece. What do you know about that, Kodiak?
Hey, yeah, so that one was kind of a wild one we were on, just because of the push to get 2/3 of that project done by the end of the year for those tax credits, which led to a lot of the contractors showing up. And I think we had 9 or 10 different contractors at one time.
Yeah, I think they're all different ones that are out there now.
Yeah, but no, yeah, definitely some of that large scale, and just breaking down the scope of work. And like you said, like you were pulling the wire. I spent some time working the switchboards and transformers. We had other guys, just setting mods, and other guys just cleaning up behind us, really. So it's definitely a large scale project.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to bring this to a close here. We're pretty much at the end here. I'll open it up if anybody's got any questions or any comments as we're ending it here. Give somebody the last chance. If not, Jimmy.
I just came in late, so I was just picking up on it.
Yeah. Hey, Devanin. Go ahead, Devanin.
Yeah, I was just saying it was interesting hearing you guys talk about utility, as I'm involved in something like that right now in a deeper level. So our country is, of course, a little bit different than USA in terms of
We're losing you a little bit, buddy.
Yeah, your audio is going out, Devanin. Nope, you're just breaking up into little bits of packets there.
Oh boy, he's not done either.
All right, I'm gonna have to.
All right.
Sorry, Devanin, we won't be able to hear you. All right, anybody, Jimmy, any closing thoughts on this before we call it a day?
Well, I just want to say that I'm really blessed, and I'm really thankful for the people that know what I'm doing, and they're supportive of that. They're supportive of the second chance. mission that we're on, and they're supportive of people. The second chance, going back to that, people are really trying to change their lives, man. We came out of a huge opioid epidemic. We've came out of the COVID thing where people lost their jobs. We've came out of a lot of different large problems for the U.S. and other countries, but we're really trying to give people the second chance, and I'm so thankful for the supporters of that, because there's no way I could do it without them. So.
Oh, and I should recognize that Jimmy, I'll let everybody know, Jimmy was recognized by the governor of West Virginia during the State of the State. So we're in the presence of a celebrity here who got to stand up and wave and be a political prop,
He's a fossil fuel guy, but he's starting to sway a little bit. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Follow the money, baby.
Yeah.
All right.
Jay has a
Yeah.
Jay, I want to ask just a general question for small company. How do you assure a customer, if you're new and just getting going, that you'll be around to service and cover warranty? And is there any solution you've envisioned of how to deal with that?
Well, I'll tell you what. It is rough to convince somebody, hey, look, we've never done one of these before, but we're going to do you a good job. So those first couple of customers, that was kind of difficult. I'm lucky that I had people that I knew well enough that I'd rewired, because we also, before we did this, we were rewiring homes and doing service upgrades and stuff like that. So they know that we know what we're doing in that area. So when it comes to the installation, it wasn't very hard either. So I was lucky that that people trusted that I could do it to begin with. And again, I owe that to that we were able to rewire their homes and service upgrades, 200 amp, 400 amp, whatever their services are, or just 200 amp, I think. But I guess if you are trying to get into it and you haven't found a customer or found somebody that's willing to take you as a first time, I mean, sometimes, I hate to say it like this, but sometimes you got to take a gamble and just, you don't really have to come out and say, hey, this is my first one doing it, if you know what you're doing, especially if you've got somebody there that knows what they're doing. That's probably key too, is that if you've got somebody else, mentoring or working with you for your first couple of installs, you can use their experience as the experience that the crew's got. So, because if that person's on there, then they know where things are supposed to fall and are supposed to go. So that would be helpful.
Well, fortunately in solar, if it's working at the time of commissioning, it's probably going to be working for a good long while.
That's very true too.
So it's not
Right.
like something that wears out quickly.
Right, exactly. And then as far as the maintenance and stuff on it, for the first year, I told my clients that, look, I'll shovel the snow off your arrays. I'll do whatever I need to do, you know what I mean, to make sure that it's serviced. Like I said, we use in-phase products. Those are micro inverters. If one goes out, it's pretty easy to get one back from in-phase, from my understanding. Haven't done this yet. But it's pretty easy to get one back, and then we would just go change the micro inverter. I'd say that's part of the first year of service. And I do say that, but after that, I think that there should be something for your time. If you're changing micro inverters and stuff like that, you probably want to, charge it as because it's not your fault that the micro inverter went out.
Yeah.
So, but, offering maintenance for the first year, I don't think that's a serious problem.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing.
Okay, well, I'm going to cut it off here. So
But
I thank everybody. And as we said, this will be posted on YouTube. So jump on in and see all the old Solar Noon Tuesday. So anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining.
thanks, man. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.